This is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents. And today we have State Representative Jeff Roy. Jeff, welcome again to the program.
Great to see you. Great to see you. I'll always love coming on your show.
I love having you. Jeff, it's time for re-election.
It is.
November 5th.
First Tuesday after the first Monday in November is Election Day.
First Tuesday.
After the first Monday.
After the first Monday.
Right.
Is the election.
Yes.
6 to 8 o'clock in Franklin is the same in Medway?
Medway starts at 7 a.m. and goes to 8 p.m.
Goes to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Franklin will be voting at the field house, not field house,
the gymnasium. Yeah.
Gymnasium.
Yeah, and Medway does their elections at the Medway Middle School.
At the middle school.
Yes.
Well, Jeff, one of the reasons I asked you back is, you know, we did the tour of the State House.
Yes.
And a phenomenal, I thought, show came out of that.
Yeah. And you know something, I love that show so much, I run it on my website. So if you're ever looking to see State House tour, it's with Frank Falvey, and it's on my my State House website.
Yeah. Oh, it was a great show. Great show.
Yeah.
But you got a wonderful honor of being on the 250th celebration of Massachusetts committee, and in 2026 we're going to be celebrating the country's 250th birthday.
Yes.
And that you must have felt great about being on that committee.
Well, I originally filed the legislation to establish the commission to celebrate the revolution. And once we actually did the legislation and the bill passed, the first thing I did was to get in touch with the Speaker and say, please appoint me to that commission. I love history. I love the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I love the United States of America. And I wanted to be a part of that celebration. And I always say to folks, you know, people think of Philadelphia when they think of the Declaration of Independence and Congress appearing in Philadelphia. Well, I like to remind folks that here in Massachusetts, we did all the work for the revolution. They just did the paperwork down in Philadelphia. You know, this year, it's 2024, but I had the opportunity to go to the Lexington Green to witness the reenactment of the first shot that started the American Revolution. And it was great. I was there with Governor Healy and many of her cabinet members, and we were standing watching this reenactment. It was incredible how well it was done and how seriously they take it. The only issue is it starts at 5:30 in the morning. So I had to drive from Franklin and be up on the Lexington Green. They wanted me there by 5 o'clock, and huge crowd there. The 250th anniversary of that event is next year in 2025, so I gather that that place is going to be packed. But we've got a whole exciting thing. So, you know, I brought the T-shirts. This is the T-shirt that the Massachusetts has come out. That's the logo for Mass 250, but on the back, you see that Massachusetts is a state of firsts. You know, first Thanksgiving, first public park, first public school, first university, first printing press, first public library, first lighthouse, first, what is that? First battle.
Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, the
ship
list
of
goes
the
on.
U.S. Navy commissioned. And I'm trying to think, was that commissioned up on the North Shore in Newburyport? No, that was the Coast Guard.
Yeah, this is the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and then the first state Constitution.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think when it was commissioned.
Yeah, it was probably in the North Shore, like the Salem area.
Yeah.
First typewriter, first sewing machine, first telephone call, first basketball game, first volleyball game, first subway system, first marathon, first transatlantic message, first computer, first chemotherapy, and the first state to legalize marriage equality. An incredible history of what Massachusetts has done and what Massachusetts means to the country. And when I know when we did the tour, I showed you this particular mural, but I want to remind folks about it now. In Nurses Hall, which is one of the most beautiful spots in the State House, there are 3 murals. On the left side, you got Paul Revere doing his famous ride, and then on the right side, you've got the Boston Tea Party, which everybody recognizes. They see those and instantly they do it. But in between those 2 murals is a larger one that nobody knows what it is. And it actually was a trial in 1761 where James T. Otis, nobody knows who James T. Otis is, but he was a lawyer from Boston, and he was arguing before the British Crown at the old State House about writs of assistance and how they should be abolished, and making very comments about how it's un-American, even though America did not exist in 1761. And he argued for 5 hours, but he lost that trial. But it was an important event. There was a young man sitting there watching that trial and writing a diary that day. And in the diary, this young man wrote, "I saw the flame of liberty ignited in that trial." And that young man was John Adams. And 15 years later, he was one of the principal authors of the Declaration of Independence. And it all started right here in Boston.
Knowing that this event is coming up, I have been collecting music of the Revolutionary period and collecting history of the time. Folkways Records has the oldest speech, not in its entirety, but as part of the build-up to the Revolution. They've selected certain speeches and comments, and Otis is recognized in that speech, which I hope to be highlighting in 2026.
Right. Right.
What type of celebration are we going to be having? Well, I mean, are the tall ships coming back?
The tall ships are coming back. Gillette Stadium will be renamed Boston Stadium. It will be the host of World Cup Soccer in 2026. We will have historical events throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. All 351 communities have something significant to celebrate with regard to the Revolution, and we will be putting together a compendium of resources available. I actually chair the subcommittee on education for the commission, and we did an examination of all the curriculum materials that are out there for public schools, for colleges, for adults, and we put together this rich booklet that describes educational opportunities for anyone in the spectrum, be it kids in elementary to adults who are doing lifelong learning. But we put these all together in a booklet that we'll be distributing as a commission, and hosting a number of events across the state. Of course, Lexington and Concord occupy some significant space. Boston occupies a significant space. So a lot of things happening. It's going to be an incredibly exciting year in 2026, and I'm looking forward to it. We had President Ford had came to the Lexington Green in 1976. Oh. So let's lay the groundwork for the next president to come and visit the Lexington Green, and hopefully that will happen as well.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Funding.
Yep.
Is it pre-funded already, or do the bills to fund this have to be voted on?
Well, we did an appropriation in FY 2025 to fund some of the initial activities, but there'll be some need for additional funding, but there's also private foundations that are set up. Rev 250 is a private foundation that's been ongoing, I think, about 5 or 10 years, actually raising private funds to help us do it. The Mass Historical Society is really leading on that effort, and we had an event there a couple of years ago to get the energy flowing and get people interested in donating to this cause. And while I was at the luncheon, They actually presented me with the original letter written by Paul Revere describing his ride through up to Lexington, and in his own handwriting. And let me hold it. I took some pictures with it. It was just amazing to have that piece of paper in my hand, written by Paul Revere. They have an enormous amount of resources that people are going to have access to during this special occasion.
Are towns like Franklin going to fund their own celebration?
They'll fund some of their own, but there are grant opportunities. I was actually helping Alan Earls prepare a grant application for a program that he was going to try to run. Same thing with the Black Box Theater. They're going to do some sort of a production of 1776, the music of the musical 1776. So those types of events will occur, but I'm sure we'll see a lot, and it'll be a mixture of public funding and private funding to support these events.
The events, they're not set in stone yet, or some of them, is there a place people can go to see what events are happening when?
There is a Mass 250 website where people can see these events, and the intention of having all these events is to generate enormous economic activity in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we'll make some investments as a government in some of these programs, but it's all going to be returned to us when people come and stay in our hotels and visit our restaurants and buy things out here in Massachusetts. We expect a great return on that investment.
You've just opened up my favorite question.
Yes, sir.
How are we going to provide restrooms on Massachusetts state highways with all these guests coming in and no place to pee?
Well, look at, I push that issue every time I see them. I know it's Mass Office of Tourism that does it, and they're the group that is running Mass 250. And whereas I've been focusing on the Mass Department of Transportation on that particular issue previously, I'm going to turn my attention to Mott and say, look, you got to find a place for these folks who are driving in, an opportunity for them to relieve themselves. So we'll work on that.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that I keep thinking about, okay, is the Supreme Court recent decision. I believe it was around the papers that the presidents took, or individuals took that they weren't authorized to.
Sure.
Seems like a very terrible decision in the sense that the Supreme Court seems to be giving a lot of authority that you can't ask for those papers. I almost probably gather you're familiar with the case.
I'm familiar with, this is the one where they give presidential immunity. Is that
Right.
the correct one? Yeah,
Right.
I'm familiar with the case.
So, to me, this seems that Massachusetts, because of its constitution, because of Harvard and other things, we probably would benefit from an educational point of view or another point of view, what Massachusetts contributed to the legal system, and point out maybe some of the things that existed then and thoughts then, as opposed to what maybe is happening in the Supreme Court today.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly troubling that an opinion like that could emerge. I think the last time we were here together, we were talking about the home equity theft, a decision which I was fully in support of, but there were other issues with this Supreme Court that I really call into question. And that notion of providing immunity to the president really runs afoul of the notion that our country is based on, that no one is above the law.
Right.
And it certainly seems that they have put the president above the law, and that doesn't sit well with us as Americans. And I think I'll go back to the tour of the State House. the first statue that came in was of George Washington, and it came to the State House in 1824. And it's a statue that looks like he's cloaked in a regal gown. And the folks at the State House at the time did not want that statue in the building.
Right.
Because they said, we are rebelling against kings, and this is a nation of the people. And the artist said, so no, that's not George Washington wrapped in a regal cloak. That's George Washington wrapped in a flag coming off of a field of battle. And at that, he was welcomed into the State House. He stood in that spot since 1824. But that's really core to our beliefs as Americans, that no one is above the law. We don't have kings in America.
Right.
And I think that opinion runs afoul of that sacred notion that goes back to our founding.
When you were mentioning Otis and you were mentioning John Adams defended the British soldiers against the what was called a massacre on State Street.
Right.
Because it involved kids throwing snowballs. It involved a soldier slipping and falling to the ground, and he defended their action. So again, in Massachusetts, when we come to the law, we come to the legal right and precedent of everyone having the day and having the best people to defend them.
Sure.
From persecution.
Yeah, and the spot of that massacre is memorialized at the top of State Street.
Yes.
And it's right in front of the old State House, where Massachusetts government started in 1784 and was in that building until 1798. And the massacre occurred right outside that building. And I would say to folks, if you want to see some incredible sights of American history, I would urge you to stop at the old State House. It's right at the top of State Street.
Well, as I remember, I worked for a bank back in 1960.
Sure.
The Merchants Bank, and I thought that marker was right kind of outside the bank and a little down the hill from the State House.
Yeah.
Have they moved it?
It hasn't been moved, but State Street kind of goes around this particular area.
Right.
In fact, if you were looking on Google for one State Street, you'd get lost because it's now an alleyway that maintains that memorial there, and you have to go around into an alleyway to get to one State Street. And you look at it on a map and you say, where is this place? But it's that's like sacred ground where that occurred. And but it's great history. It's great to if you take that tour along the Freedom Trail, that's one of the stops as well.
Yeah, there's so much to see.
Yeah.
Here in Massachusetts, around the Revolutionary period, around the period before the actual fighting and documents, and after the Federalist Papers, there's a tremendous amount to see.
There is. And
let me move on for a minute.
Sure.
In the re-election process now, after the House and Senate are re-elected come in January, the Speaker of the House, and I imagine the President of the Senate, they appoint chair people.
Yes, they do.
To committees.
Yes.
Right? What committee would you like to be appointed to?
Well, I'd like to be appointed to whatever committee the Speaker believes I can be most helpful. I think my work on the Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy Committee has been incredibly exciting for me. I'd welcome the opportunity to return.
Are there still issues that committee needs to deal with, or is it time to move to something else?
Well, I will say that energy and climate change are two of the most exciting topics in government today, and there's a lot of work to be done in those fields. And so I would welcome that opportunity. But again, I serve at the pleasure of the Speaker when it comes to committee chairmanships, and wherever he or she may feel I can be helpful to that institution, I'd be honored to serve.
What do you see in the next couple of years? You want to be part of a planning or handle logistic. I'm using the wrong word. You like to solve policy questions.
Yeah.
What are going to be some of the policy questions in the next 2 years that the Senate and the House of Representatives are going to really have some struggle over, because they're not at this point maybe all unified in the same direction?
Well, I would say that global warming and climate change will be a topic in every legislative session from now on through 2050. It's just a topic. I mean, we're dealing with hurricanes of incredible magnitude that are hitting, climate events, rising seas, and we have to be prepared for that onslaught of changes in our climate. So that'll be a topic. Housing affordability in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will remain a hot topic. And budget priorities are always, always top on our minds. We do a budget every single year. The House does it in April, the Senate does it in May, and the governor proposes a budget in January. That's something that happens every single day. We're still dealing with a substance use disorder crisis throughout the nation, and education is a huge piece. Every year we'll do something in the education space. This year we focused a lot on early education. Mental health is another top issue. I don't know if you've read the news recently that the Attorney General in Massachusetts has joined in a lawsuit against the folks at TikTok for really taking advantage of young adults or children in tracking their data and contributing to mental health issues. So there's a host of topics that are on our plate that I envision will be there over the next couple of years.
You have pointed out that the housing crisis has existed 10, 20 years, and it was more about pregnant women and women in general not having a place to stay or be housed in.
Right, that's the origin of the right to shelter and the emergency sheltering law that we did 40 years ago, was to help, families with children and pregnant women who were homeless.
Right.
And that's where that program originated.
But because the federal government has not in any way been able to stop people from crossing the border, okay, they're now moving more north.
Sure.
They're moving more north.
Yeah. And some governors are sending migrants
people
on planes and sending them to places like Massachusetts.
Yeah, and when Texas sent people to
Martha's Vineyard.
Was it Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah.
I remember being on Toward a More Perfect Union and arguing that Martha's Vineyard people should have absorbed them into the Martha's Vineyard economy to show that we're accepting.
Sure.
And it would have been the right way to begin a different process.
Yep.
But the raw numbers of people coming up, there's never going to be money in the Massachusetts budget to ever take care of it.
It's an unsustainable problem, and we did pass legislation that put caps on the number of folks that we could accommodate in the program. Look, my faith and my upbringing taught me that we should help people and help them help themselves and provide for them. But you can't do it at the cost of everything else in your society. So we had to put some limits in place, and we also required the governor to issue us biweekly reports on the number of folks that were being provided for under this system, where the funds were going to come to, and more importantly, we required that we get work permits for these folks and workforce training for these folks. And as of a couple of weeks ago, over 4,000 of these migrants had gone through workforce training programs and gotten jobs. There's a company, actually a human services operation out of Marlboro, that has struggled to find home care workers, and with the migrants who have come in, who have gone through this workforce training, they're now fully staffed for the first time in a decade. So to that extent, we're getting the migrants out of the temporary housing, getting them into jobs where they can support themselves, and they're taking on jobs that other folks will not do, and it's actually helping our economy get back on track.
Yeah, I think the right idea is, like in Franklin, we have a number staying here in Franklin.
It's about 80 families.
About 80 families.
Yep.
If the program spreads out to every community, that every community has some of these people in the community, it's going to be much more easier to absorb and train them and find places of employment within the community.
Yeah, and I think that's the object of the program. You know, put caps on the numbers that we can handle, but provide wraparound services to get them out of the temporary housing.
Jeff, what's the question I haven't asked you that you really want the people to know before they go to the polls? Or actually, they're going to the polls now.
They're going to the polls already.
Nancy.
You know, I just always focus back on, you know, why do you want to do this job? You've been at it now for 12 years. Why do you want to continue? And I say, Frank, I've reached a point in the State House where I really understand how the system works, how to get your ideas into law, and how to deliver for your community. And there's so much more work to be done that I want to stay. I want to complete the tasks that I've been given, and there's no better time for me to do it. I love the job. I love getting up every morning and getting into the State House and digging into some of the tough policy issues. The Speaker in my career has put me in charge of healthcare finance, has put me in charge of higher education, and now has put me in charge of telecommunications, utilities, and energy. And when I go in and I talk to the Speaker about what I want to do, I say, give me something that's going to challenge me and allow me to use the tools that I possess to solve these problems.
But you started off as co-chair of the Ethics Committee in
Yes.
Marty Walsh's old office,
Yes,
wasn't
I
it?
did. Yes, you remember very well. I like that. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you.
We want to encourage everyone to be at the polls on November 5th, or to go vote by mail, or to go in person and vote
Early.
at the town clerk's office.
Let's
Yeah.
break the record turnout that we had back 4 years ago. I would love to see us approach 90%, or better yet, 100%, but I'll settle for 90.
I know you and I disagree on this, but in Massachusetts, we don't have a qualified person running for president of the United States. None of the four people that are going to get, that are running in any way, in my deepest understanding of the presidency, could handle the job. So in Massachusetts, I recommend you don't vote for the president. It's not going to matter. And we need to seriously talk about when only 7 states decide who's going to be the president, and all the other states get passed over. No arguments are really made in those states. We need to either think about congressional districts, by state vote or another popular vote or some other way.
You just set up a topic for another show.
Or another topic for a more perfect union.
There we go. All right, look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. We have a number of other episodes on ballot questions, and it's not too late if you're a candidate to come down and be interviewed. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate it.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.